Hello everyone and welcome back to the garage. We're finally going to get started on the frame for the truck today, but I got to show you the mistake that I almost made that would have been catastrophic. While editing the last video, from this angle, I noticed a little something wrong right here. I'll throw up a screenshot from the last video so you can compare the two. You can also click on the card right here to go watch that. But yeah, we were out of square by quite a bit. So I ground out these stitch welds, got everything squared up, but the rear end was measured off of the front end. So the rear end's off too. I'm gonna save fixing that for later and get rolling on this. So what was done from factory is basically what I'm going to do. They have their main frame rail, then a few pieces that they weld on for the cradle points and for the upper arms. I spent the past couple days on the computer, and I've got files out at my buddy getting water jetted right now, so I'm gonna start prepping the two new frame rails. The material for the frame rails is 120 wall 2x6 rectangular tubing, and the basic idea for the frame, we're coming off on the camber angle, which is 7 degrees, then we're gonna pitch down, run flat along the bottom where our cab's gonna mount up, then we're gonna pitch up, and then run flat all the way to the back of the truck. These two pieces are the front frame rail pieces that are going to have all of the suspension mounting components on them. And I made these sweet little miter templates. So these line up on the tubing, lets me mark my angle to get them as close as possible. These also have locating features for the cradle pads they're going to weld on. I'm sure you've seen tons of people do cuts with cutoff wheels, so we'll jump to when the cool parts get here. I lied, kinda. Cutoff wheels weren't great, but I've got a chop saw, might as well use it. I'm back at the garage and all of the pieces for the main frame rail are cut, and I got a box of goodies from my buddy. So all these are what's going to attach that to this. All of that is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, so let's hop in the computer. All of the yellow are the pieces that are laid out on the table. They will get welded together, and you can see they mount onto the frame rail and then connect to the Corvette chassis. The alignment tool that keys into all these little grooves on these side plates is not meant to stay with the frame once it's done. It's just to hold the parts so they're where they're supposed to be. Everything you've seen from the frame jig to the frame to all the pieces that have been water jet, I have designed right here. Now that you know what's going on, I'm gonna start putting this mess together. Got some of the mounting pads tacked up, got both of the alignment tools on there. You can see how this guy lines up with the miter and it's notching into the two rear plates. You might be starting to see the first difficult part with making these new pads. If we come back over to the original frame, we go through all the way through the frame, and they have a little piece of round tubing in there. That's where our bolts go through. I don't have those holes yet. The tricky part is we are a little offset. This is running on 7 degrees from the mounting pads, so that's a little difficult to get at. My idea, and I hope this works, I'm going to use the holes that are already in the mounting pads as kind of a guide to take a 1-inch hole saw to get through the frame rail. So I'm going to put a couple more tacks on here, test fit it before we get too far, and then we'll try to drill those holes. Test fitting, it's not going so well. So it's sitting about where it's supposed to be, and it's crooked. So I did a little digging with the tape measure. This 35 is supposed to be a 34. So that means that this whole piece is basically junk unless I want to cut it apart, and that's not gonna work super well because there's quite a few tacks on it. I have extra material, so I went the make new parts route, which was good because it let me experiment with drilling those holes, and that didn't go well either. So instead of drilling those holes, I cut a new piece of frame, chucked them both in the machine center, and milled out some pockets where those gotta go through. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because they often lead to better ideas. It's a couple hours later, and the new ones fit. Not only do they fit, they're square and they're straight. One last thing before we buzz all these in are these center supports. I do have this one sitting in there already, and the main thing this is going to do is keep the bolt from crushing the tube once we get this all tightened down. And I did cut these tubes a little bit shorter so they're recessed in these top plates, so I have a nice valley that I can put a good weld in and then grind it back smooth. So I'm going to get all of those tacked in, and then we'll start laying the frame together. Frame's coming together pretty quick. This yellow string that's running through the center is the center line of the frame. And I have a bunch of these spacer plates that hold the frame at the correct width, and they're all tacked in, holding the frame at the correct width. I found center of all those spacers, marked them, then used that to line up on the string. So that makes everything straight and centered. You can see those little T-bar mounts that I have down there. I have 4 more of those, and we're going to be doing the exact same method on the back here to hold the frame rails. To get these guys set, I'm using a Precision Ground 246 block. So I have the block sitting on top, make sure everything's nice and clean. I have another piece of flat metal, so I'm pushing it up against the frame jig and then pushing it up and holding it square with the top of the block, and then coming in with a little clamp and clamping her up. So now that, guys, is close to 4 inches off of this surface as I can make it. So I gotta do that 3 more times, and then we're chucking the back of the frame up there. This one's pretty much dead nuts. Level there, level there. I have a suspicion that it's not this way though. And this side could come up just a little bit. Pretty much just that one needs to come up. I know, like just a couple pieces of paper. Yep. That has been a lot of welding, and I'm not even close to done yet. All of the seams on the frame rails are done, and most of the seams on the cradle mounts are done. The seams were beveled heavily with a little bit of a gap, and I welded them nice and hot so the welds would be kind of smooth. Because now I have to put on these fish plates. These guys are monsters, and they're going to help distribute the load that all these seams are going to see. I want to give a huge shout out to Sorg Welding in Darien, Wisconsin. He's the man who has helped me get all this stuff cut out. If you're in the southern Wisconsin area and you need any kind of metal fab work done, Andy is your man. I have the fish plates set up on the one side here so you can see what it's going to look like. And these fish plates are kind of huge. And I'm going to say they look pretty gnarly. And this one here is partially welded. So that's roughly what it's going to be like. The goal is to have this done by April for the Pro Touring Truck Shootout at Beach Bend Raceway. There is quite a ways to go yet, but I think it can be done. If you agree, why don't you smash that like button and let me know what you think down in the comments. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.